Beloved brothers and sisters, there comes a moment in every believer's life when the heart begins to whisper a question that touches both destiny and desire. When is the right time to marry? For many, this question carries a mixture of hope and heaviness, of faith and fear. Some have waited for years, wondering if God has forgotten them. Others have rushed ahead, only to find that what looked like a blessing became a burden. But today, I want to tell you something that will change the way you see your season. God's timing is never off. Every delay has meaning, every pause carries purpose, and every waiting season is shaping something divine inside you. You see, marriage is not just an emotional connection, it is a spiritual covenant. It is heaven's idea, not man's invention. And because it is divine, it must be entered in divine timing. The problem is, many people know what they want, but very few understand when God wants it for them. The difference between a marriage that thrives and one that struggles is often not the person, but the timing. Heaven has a rhythm, and when you move according to that rhythm, your life flows in peace, purpose, and power. This message is not just for those waiting to be married, but for anyone who is learning to trust God's timing in life. Because before God joins you to someone, He first joins you to His purpose. Before He writes your love story, He builds your foundation. And before He answers your prayer, He tests your patience. Timing is not a clock issue, it's a character issue. God is more interested in making you ready than making you married. So today, open your heart as we uncover the spiritual secrets behind perfect timing. We are going to explore what it really means to wait on God, how to know when the season is right, and how peace becomes your confirmation. Stay with me until the end, because this word is not just information, it is transformation. By the time we're done, your perspective on waiting, preparation, and purpose will shift. You will no longer see delay as disappointment, but as divine development. Get ready to be inspired, challenged, and empowered to trust the God who holds your times in His hands. Because when it's His time, no power in hell, no voice of doubt, and no fear of delay can stop what He has already ordained for your life. Your timing is coming, and when it does, it will be perfect. Timing is the language of God, and purpose is the message He speaks through it. Everything that God creates, He assigns a time for its manifestation. In the same way, marriage is not simply about two people deciding to share life together. It is about two purposes aligning in divine season. God never moves outside of time because time is His instrument for unfolding destiny. Before Adam ever met Eve, God placed him in a season of purpose, order, and assignment. Adam did not seek Eve. God introduced Eve when Adam had reached the fullness of his preparation. That is the mystery of timing. It is the bridge between purpose and manifestation. Many people rush into marriage because they mistake loneliness for readiness. But heaven operates by seasons, not emotions. When your life is synchronized with divine timing, everything aligns without struggle. God is never late, yet He is never early. He arrives at the fullness of time. The problem with human impatience is that it tries to harvest what has not yet matured. You cannot pick fruit before it ripens, and you cannot enter marriage before you are seasoned by purpose. The timing of God protects you from entering relationships that could destroy your destiny. His delays are not denials, they are divine preparations. The world teaches us to move by pressure, the pressure of age, society, or desire. But the Spirit teaches us to move by revelation. When you understand the language of timing, you stop asking, "When will I marry?" and start asking, "Am I ready for what I'm praying for?" Because marriage is not about finding someone to complete you. It is about being complete enough to complement someone else. God will not bring you into a covenant that you are not mature enough to sustain. If your purpose is not yet defined, marriage can become a distraction rather than a destiny. Timing ensures that both individuals are walking in purpose before walking down the aisle. In the kingdom of God, timing is not measured by clocks or calendars, but by growth and readiness. The right time to marry is when God's assignment in your life intersects with His assignment in someone else's. When two people meet before their seasons are ripe, their union can produce frustration instead of fruitfulness. But when they meet in the fullness of God's time, their connection multiplies purpose and advances divine plans. The greatest danger in relationships is not rejection, but premature connection. You can meet the right person at the wrong time and lose them, or meet them in the wrong season and damage both destinies. That is why understanding timing is essential to divine success in marriage. When God is preparing you for marriage, He is not only shaping your heart, but also aligning your circumstances. Sometimes He hides you to develop you. Sometimes He delays you to protect you. Sometimes He closes doors to preserve your destiny. You may not understand His methods, but you can trust His timing. If you move too soon, you will find yourself repairing what patience could have prevented. If you move too late, you may miss divine opportunity. But when you move in His time, grace accompanies your every step. God's timing is perfect because it operates on purpose, not pressure. Every relationship built outside divine timing will require human strength to survive, but relationships birthed in divine timing will be sustained by grace. When the time is right, you won't need to chase. What's yours will recognize you. God's plan is never delayed. It's only preparing you to match the promise. When you understand this truth, you no longer live in anxiety or fear of missing out. You trust that the author of time has written your story in a way that no one else can alter. Timing is God's silent affirmation that your purpose is still unfolding exactly as He intended. Maturity always precedes matrimony because God never joins children in covenant. He unites mature hearts that understand responsibility. Marriage is not an emotional playground. It is a spiritual covenant that demands understanding, patience, and sacrifice. Many rush to marry because they feel ready emotionally, but feeling ready and being ready are two different things. Maturity is not determined by your age, appearance, or how long you've been dating. It is measured by how well you can handle truth, pressure, and responsibility. When God designed marriage, He designed it for grown spirits, those who have conquered themselves before committing to another. You cannot lead in love if you are still lost in immaturity. Before God brought Eve to Adam, He made sure Adam had identity, assignment, and discipline. God placed Adam in the garden not to rest, but to work, to name, to govern, and to grow. Only after he mastered his environment did God decide he was ready for partnership. That is divine order. You must be whole before you are joined. Maturity means you have learned to walk in purpose without depending on another human being for validation. It means you have found your joy in God before you seek joy in another person. Marriage magnifies who you already are. If you are confused, it multiplies confusion. If you are stable, it multiplies peace. Maturity ensures that what grows after marriage is fruit, not frustration. A mature person understands that love is not possession, it is stewardship. You don't own your spouse, you serve them. You don't demand attention, you give affection. Immaturity wants to receive, maturity lives to give. Immature hearts enter marriage expecting someone to fix their emptiness, but mature hearts enter marriage to share their fullness. Until you have been healed by God, you are not ready to hold another person's heart. That is why God takes His time developing you in seasons of solitude. He allows loneliness to become your training ground. In that season, you learn to depend on Him, to manage your emotions, to discern your weaknesses, and to grow in wisdom. When you master yourself, you become qualified to manage covenant. Maturity also means understanding that marriage is ministry. It is not about happiness alone, but about holiness. It is not about pleasure alone, but about purpose. Two immature people cannot fulfill divine assignment because immaturity is self-centered and ministry is selfless. Marriage requires dying to self daily. If you are still driven by ego, pride, or insecurity, you will sabotage your union before it begins. Maturity is the ability to say, "I was wrong," without losing your identity, to forgive without holding grudges, and to love without condition. A mature believer knows that marriage is not built on emotions but on decisions. Feelings fade, but covenant stands firm when it's rooted in maturity. The reason God delays some marriages is because He's giving you time to grow into the version of yourself that can sustain His blessing. Premature promotion leads to spiritual disaster. A relationship that starts before maturity often ends in misery because immaturity cannot handle the weight of covenant. Marriage requires the ability to handle misunderstanding with grace, to navigate seasons with faith, and to love when it's inconvenient. That is the fruit of spiritual maturity. When you allow God to refine you before marriage, He removes the childishness that destroys relationships. He teaches you to listen, to communicate, and to lead with love. He disciplines your emotions so they serve you instead of control you. Maturity is God's sign that you are ready for partnership. When you are mature, you no longer chase marriage to complete you. You walk in purpose, and the right person finds you fulfilling destiny. You become the answer to someone's prayer, not another person's problem. That is the true preparation for marriage. becoming a mature vessel that reflects God's character, ready to love, serve, and build according to His divine pattern. Preparation is the foundation of fulfillment, and nowhere is this more true than in marriage. The right time to marry is not determined by the arrival of another person, but by the arrival of your readiness. Marriage is not a reward for desire, it is a responsibility that requires development. Too many people spend their energy searching for the right person, yet neglect the more important task of becoming the right person. God never blesses unprepared vessels because His blessings require structure to be sustained. Preparation is the silent proof that you value what you are praying for. Before God presented Eve to Adam, He gave Adam time to be trained in purpose. Adam learned to work the garden, to guard it, and to name the living things within it. God was not simply giving Adam a job, He was preparing him for partnership. The ability to cultivate and care for the garden was practice for cultivating and caring for a relationship. God will never entrust you with what you have not proven you can maintain. If you cannot manage your life in singleness, you will not suddenly develop discipline in marriage. Preparation teaches you stewardship, and stewardship determines sustainability. Many enter marriage unprepared emotionally, spiritually, or mentally, expecting the covenant to fix what only character can form. But marriage does not change you, it exposes you. It magnifies whatever is already inside. If there is insecurity, it becomes louder. If there is selfishness, it becomes visible. If there is peace, it becomes contagious. That is why God takes you through a personal process before He takes you into partnership. The time you spend in preparation is not punishment, it is protection. He wants to make sure that when you stand before your covenant partner, you bring strength, not struggle, wisdom, not weakness, purpose, not confusion. Preparation also means alignment with God's voice. Before you join your life with someone else's, you must be able to discern God's leading for yourself. If you cannot hear God clearly in singleness, you will be easily deceived in relationships. Preparation refines your spiritual sensitivity so that when God reveals the right person, your spirit bears witness. Many have entered relationships guided by emotion, not revelation, and later discovered that what felt right was never ordained. Preparation trains you to distinguish between a distraction and a destiny connection. God uses seasons of preparation to develop patience, humility, and discernment. Every delay in your love life is a divine classroom. Every disappointment is a teacher. Every closed door is a form of direction. When you are being prepared by God, He removes the things that could destroy you later. He confronts your habits, your ego, your impatience, your lack of discipline, because these are the very things that can destroy a marriage from within. Preparation makes you whole so that your relationship can be healthy. Broken people build broken unions, but healed hearts create holy homes. It is better to wait years for the right moment than to spend years regretting the wrong one. When you are fully prepared, marriage stops being a need and becomes a calling. You no longer seek it to escape loneliness, you seek it to expand purpose. Two prepared individuals don't come together because they're empty, they come together because they're full and ready to multiply what God has placed in them. When you prepare, you attract what aligns with your growth. Your preparation becomes a signal to heaven that you're ready for promotion. God's way always involves process before promise. He doesn't give you what you desire, He gives you what you are prepared to handle. The waiting season is sacred. It's where character is built, purpose is clarified, and maturity is developed. So when God finally brings the right person, your spirit recognizes them not by appearance but by assignment. Preparation ensures that your marriage will not just survive, but fulfill the divine purpose for which it was created. The will of God is often revealed through the wisdom of waiting. Waiting is one of the hardest disciplines in life, yet it is the greatest evidence of spiritual maturity. In a world that glorifies speed, God still works through seasons. He does not rush destiny because He understands that purpose cannot be born prematurely. When you learn to wait on God, you demonstrate trust in His sovereignty and faith in His timing. The wisdom of waiting means understanding that every delay carries divine instruction and every pause has a purpose. God uses time not to punish you, but to prepare you for what He is about to release. The waiting season before marriage is not a curse, it is a classroom. It teaches patience, refines character, and tests obedience. When God makes you wait, He is not withholding love, He is building your capacity to sustain it. Love that grows too quickly often lacks roots, but love that develops in God's time becomes unshakable. Waiting allows your emotions to mature and your discernment to sharpen. It separates infatuation from revelation, desire from destiny. Many people destroy what God intends to bless because they cannot endure the silence of His timing. They mistake divine delay for divine denial, not realizing that God's "not yet" is His way of saying, "I am still preparing something better." Waiting requires trust, and trust is proven in stillness. When God asks you to wait for the right person, He is not only preparing them for you, but also preparing you for them. He will never give you what your heart cannot handle. Sometimes God delays a relationship because if He gave it to you now, your character would corrupt what your faith requested. The wisdom of waiting teaches you to depend on His word, not on your emotions. Feelings fluctuate, but faith anchors you. When you trust His timing, you refuse to settle for substitutes that look like His promise but lack His presence. The process of waiting also reveals your priorities. It exposes whether you want marriage for purpose or just for pleasure, for destiny or just for display. If you cannot be content with God alone, you will not be satisfied even in marriage. The wisdom of waiting produces contentment, the peace that comes from knowing that God is enough. When you learn to rest in Him, you stop competing with others and comparing your journey. You realize that what is for you cannot be missed, and what passes you by was never meant to stay. Waiting teaches surrender. It teaches you to let go of your own timelines and embrace God's perfect plan. Every major covenant in Scripture was preceded by waiting. Abraham waited for Isaac, Jacob waited for Rachel, Joseph waited in prison before the palace, and Jesus waited 30 years before stepping into His public ministry. God uses waiting to shape destiny because waiting breaks pride and builds perspective. The same principle applies to marriage. God uses waiting to purify motives, to teach humility, and to anchor your love in purpose. Waiting is the spiritual womb of wisdom. It births discernment and spiritual sensitivity. Those who wait on the Lord renew their strength, and when they finally step into marriage, they do so with peace, confidence, and clarity. When you refuse to wait, you step outside of divine alignment. Impatience always leads to regret. The enemy loves to push people into premature connections that look like blessings but end in pain. The wisdom of waiting is your protection against deception. When it is God's time, you won't need to force anything. Doors will open naturally, peace will follow constantly, and confirmation will come clearly. The right time is not when you think you are ready, but when God knows you are prepared. In that moment, everything that once seemed delayed will suddenly make sense. The wisdom of waiting is trusting that God's timing is not just good, it is perfect. Peace is the ultimate confirmation of divine timing. When it is God's appointed time for something to unfold, there is no confusion, no anxiety, and no striving. The peace of God is not the absence of challenges, it is the presence of assurance. When God ordains a relationship, His peace guards your heart even in uncertainty. Peace becomes the inner witness that heaven has approved your next step. Too many people mistake excitement for confirmation, but excitement fades while peace remains. Peace is not emotional, it is spiritual. It is the silent voice of God whispering, "This is the way, walk in it." When the time is right, you will not have to force what is divine. The relationship will not demand manipulation, endless proving, or restless fear. Peace comes when two people meet in alignment with purpose. It doesn't mean everything will be perfect, but there will be a supernatural calm that settles every doubt. God's peace never competes with confusion. The devil works through pressure, but God works through peace. When you are constantly anxious about whether someone loves you, or when the relationship fills you with more tension than trust, that is not divine timing speaking. That is human impatience trying to imitate divine order. True timing never needs to be defended. It confirms itself through peace. Peace flows from purpose. When you and the person you are connected to both understand your individual purposes, the relationship becomes a partnership of assignment. You are not striving to impress each other. You are inspiring each other to fulfill destiny. The peace of God sustains relationships that are born in His will because both hearts are submitted to His plan. You cannot experience divine peace if your relationship is built on disobedience. Peace follows alignment, not rebellion. Whenever you step outside God's order, chaos begins to fill the void where peace once lived. That is why the first sign of wrong timing is unrest. The quiet unease that tells your spirit something is off even when everything looks fine. Peace is also a product of spiritual maturity. The more you trust God's process, the less you are moved by external pressure. Society may tell you that your time is running out, but the Spirit of God reminds you that your time is in His hands. You do not chase peace, you carry it. When you live in the center of God's will, His peace becomes your protection against anxiety and your confirmation of readiness. You will know it's God's time when peace outweighs fear, when stillness replaces striving, and when faith silences worry. The same peace that led you to trust God in singleness will guide you into marriage without confusion. Peace is heaven's compass. It directs your steps when logic cannot. You may not have all the answers, but when the presence of peace surrounds your decision, it is a sign that God has gone before you. Every covenant that begins in peace carries the fragrance of eternity, because peace is the signature of God. When you lose peace, it is often a signal that something or someone is not aligned with your spiritual season. God uses peace to guide you just as He uses storms to correct you. Those who live by peace are never deceived by appearance. The world says follow your heart, but the kingdom says follow peace. Your heart can be deceived by emotion, but peace cannot lie. The will of God is always accompanied by His peace, even when the path seems uncertain. When it is the right time to marry, you will not need to strive to make it work. The relationship will flow with grace, decisions will be made with clarity, and both spirits will rest in confidence. Peace is the language of divine timing. It announces that heaven has synchronized your season. When peace reigns, you can step forward, knowing that what God has ordained will not fail, because peace always walks hand in hand with His perfect will. In the journey toward marriage, timing is not a human decision, but a divine revelation. God is the author of seasons, and every stage of your life carries His fingerprints. The right time to marry is not found by rushing ahead or following worldly expectations, but by walking in rhythm with His purpose. When you learn to trust God's timing, you discover that He is never late and never early. He is precise. His plan is always on schedule, even when it doesn't match your calendar. Each delay, each waiting season, and each moment of growth is part of His preparation to make you ready for His promise. Marriage is not about finding someone perfect. It's about being perfected by God so you can love with maturity, wisdom, and peace. It is about two lives that have been molded by divine purpose meeting at the crossroads of destiny. The secret to perfect timing lies in submission, submitting your emotions, your desires, and your timeline to the will of God. When you stop asking, when will it happen? And start saying, Lord, prepare me for it, you shift from impatience to revelation. The person who is truly ready for marriage is the one who has allowed God to make them whole before joining them to another soul. Remember, waiting is not punishment, it is preparation. Maturity is not about age, it is about understanding. Purpose is not found in partnership, it must exist before partnership. And peace is not a feeling, it is the divine signature that confirms God's hand over your life. When all these align, purpose, maturity, preparation, patience, and peace, then heaven announces your season. At that moment, what once felt delayed will unfold naturally because divine timing cannot be forced, it can only be revealed. So walk with patience. Guard your heart. Let God write your story. The one who waits on the Lord never waits in vain, because when the time is right, what belongs to you will recognize you. Let peace be your guide, purpose be your foundation, and God be your matchmaker. When it's His time, it will not be a struggle, it will be a confirmation. May this message awaken faith in your heart and bring you comfort in your waiting. May you find strength in patience and joy in preparation. May your future marriage become a testimony of God's perfect plan and His perfect time. Keep growing, keep trusting, and keep believing. Your season will come right on time. Good luck on your journey of faith and purpose, and thank you for listening. May God bless you abundantly and lead you into the divine union He has prepared just for you.